You know what's coming.
Your daily deep dive into everything Utah Jazz.
It's time.
All season long and even in the off season. It's Jazz Daily with JJ and Alex on your exclusive home of Utah Jazz basketball. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Host of the pre-half and post on the SEG Audio Network is Jake Scott. Host of Jake and Ben, of course, every day right here on the KSL Sports Zone. What's going on, Jake?
What's going on, guys? You talking about the entertainment tonight, guy?
Yes.
Is there anything you can't do? Wow.
I know. Yeah, look, him and Mario Lopez have carved out a nice little something with entertainment tonight. Good for them.
You gotta, stay relevant how you can.
Mary Hart and John Tesh were a big part of my childhood.
Yeah,
There's
of
no doubt
course,
about
man. Of course. I feel like your mom would have forced you to watch some of that, Jake, or was it just personal you wanted to watch it?
Oh, you know what? I do get this from my mom. It's funny you say that, but she's a National Enquirer subscriber, and I love that stuff, dude. I could read that stuff all day. It's totally a guilty pleasure.
Well,
for sure.
we were just watching last night on Monday Night Football. They had like this Wolfman baby that they brought out, and I don't know we were trying to figure out what they were doing, and so that's right up your alley too.
Wait, I gotta stop you. That's like the Daily World. That is not the National Enquirer. That is not the same thing. And you know what? You can tell I'm a reader of the Enquirer because I'm offended.
The Enquirer.
There.
You classed it up.
You're above that.
I forgot.
You're better than that stuff.
I'm offended. That is a different thing. That is a different thing entirely.
You're not going to feed into that trash.
That's all right. That's fine. Look, National Enquirer.
No, if you want to know, did a senator's dad kill Kennedy? That's the Enquirer.
Now we're talking.
No, aliens and something else. That's the Daily World.
Yeah, your Enquirer was TMZ before TMZ was TMZ.
Right.
So there you go.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Jake, I want to stop before we start talking about Jazz here. We were just talking about if BYU and Utah are going to have some Big 12 all-conference first or second teamers. Any guesses?
Oh, I don't know. I heard you guys go through some of the names. It feels like you guys have a pretty good grasp on it. I would hope BYU's pretty represented. They had a really good year. I mean, obviously the layups of the special teams, as I heard you guys talking about. Utah, I don't know. Obviously there's some defensive names that are out there that'll probably get it, but it's tough to complain too much about that stuff when you're bottom, third of the league, right?
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. Well, before we get into some Jazz stuff, we got to wrap up the college football season with you. Utah, what's the biggest priority this offseason? What's the most important move they make?
Well, solidify the head coach, I guess, is the obvious answer. I don't think that's really what you're looking for, but obviously is staying or going. And that could come any minute, right? Did I miss anything? I've been,
no update as of right now.
Then it goes to offensive coordinator. You fire a coach in the middle of the year. You obviously have identified that as a problem. So I think that's probably it. And I guess, Witt's going to consult Morgan on this at very least. What's the vision of the offense going into the future? I have a different take on that than most people. But I think as far as the most important thing, it's got to be that, right? What's the offensive vision like going forward? And then you have to hit recruiting after that. And so you have to solidify what the vision of the program is going to be, who's at the top of the program, and then, get on to things like fundraising, which I hate is such a part of this, but you have to go to your fan base and beg for money. But So, yeah, I would say that. I mean, what direction does the offense go? What's the vision?
Jake, one of the things that we obviously followed all year long was, that Morgan Scalley is going to be the guy. Do you think that it would actually be something that would be that taking over the program right now would be detrimental to him getting started off there, or would it be good to kind of just go, you know what, starting a little bit fresh here? If Kyle Whittingham does step away, is it an okay time for Morgan to be taking over the program? I mean, obviously he's going to take over whenever Kyle's gone, but do you think it would be better to have Kyle end on a really, really good season and then have Morgan inherit that, or Morgan go, you know what, I'm going to build this thing up starting next year?
So So I think there's two good arguments to be made on both sides, and so honestly, when that happens, usually there's not a bad answer either. A lot of folks say, hand Morgan low expectations and let him build the program the way he wants to build it. So if Witt goes out, with a below average team, you're actually kind of setting Morgan up for success because he doesn't have to win the league in year one. So I could buy into that a little bit, but part of me thinks, Kyle Whittingham is still a really good coach. He hasn't forgotten how to coach. I don't think the problem is his message is not reaching his team. A lot of times I think that's the problem with these coaches that hang around a long, long time, like my beloved Frank Beamer with Virginia Tech. I think his message just stopped landing, But I don't necessarily think that's the problem with Witt. We still got the you become us, we don't become you thing going on, at least for the moment. I mean, we'll see how that survives the new landscape. If his heart's in it, I don't see how you wouldn't want him to be the coach the next year if you're a Utah fan. And if Morgan Scalley is willing to be patient, which all indications are that that's a yes, that he wants the Utah job and that he'll be the guy to get it. So I don't think Utah can really lose either way, except for, what is that vision for the offense and who's actually making the decisions, and I don't think this is the case, but if Coach Witt wants like a semi-retirement, more golf than football kind of gig, well, he's got a parachute in his contract. Go ahead and ease into retirement. But if his full heart's in it, I don't see how you pass on that if you're asking what's the best case scenario.
When you're evaluating what BYU accomplished this season, Jake, I mean, obviously it was a tremendous season for them, but do the 10 wins stand out to you more than losing 2 of the last 3 and missing out on the Big 12 championship game? How do you balance those two things when you're evaluating what BYU accomplished this season?
I think sometimes all the time, when it comes to the narrative that the timing of the loss is weighed unjustly. So my short answer to your question is yes, remember the 10 wins. Remember the great season. This is a great season. I compared it to 2006, one of Broncos' best teams. I think most people would say was a great team. There are some differences between the two, like that team won the league. But do you remember, Jeremiah, or Alex, for that matter, don't mean to leave you out, pal. Do you remember who those 2 losses were to?
Boston College. I was there in Boston, covered that game. And was the other one Arizona? What was the other loss? Didn't they miss a field goal at the end or something?
Yeah, or somebody missed one. I can't remember how.
Yeah, they started that year 1 and 2, I remember.
Right, and then they just rattled it off and rebounded and had a great year. I bet you most people couldn't tell you who those losses were to. I bet most people would just be like, oh yeah, they balled. Like I remember Beck senior year. I remember Curtis Brown. I think Austin Collie was a freshman. That's Johnny Harleen.
Yeah, Harleen and Coates at tight end.
Yeah,
it's a
Cam
great
Jensen,
team.
the
That's
general.
Right. I don't think the fact that there are 2 losses that came in November should really cloud it. Other than, it's hard to win games in a good conference in November, and Utah proved that out. I don't think, some of those teams that collapsed in November for Utah should be remembered any less good or bad than they were just because those losses came then. I think oftentimes we overweight that sort of thing. And I said this on my show, but I was annoyed with, and I get it, it's a rivalry thing, but, I annoyed with Ute fans saying BYU fans couldn't claim, a share of the regular season title, whatever that means. But they were in a 4-way tie atop the league. I mean, they lost out to some weird tiebreakers. You know what I mean? Like, it still doesn't make sense to me how BYU had to beat Houston to have Iowa State go to the title, to make it a 4-way tie instead of a 3-way tie. I mean, how silly is that? BYU had a great year. They got beat out by tiebreakers, which is lame, and they had it, and they could have won it if they won a couple of games, but it didn't go their way. And Kansas, they got Kansas at the wrong time of year, and granted, they got them at home and probably still should have won, but they didn't. they go down to Arizona and they were right there or Arizona State, and they were right there with the Devils to the end. If they hadn't gotten to such a bad start, who knows? But they lost those games, but they won 10 in a big-time league. I don't know how. I hope people remember it as a great year because I do. I think it's a great year for BYU. They should be proud of themselves down there.
Well, Jake, let's jump into this Utah Jazz game tonight versus the Oklahoma City Thunder. I know that a lot of people have been like, "Oh, that's the model you gotta follow." Do you still buy into that? Like to just go, "Oh, you just got to get an SGA and a Chet Holmgren," although he's injured obviously. But I mean, this is a team that right now is dominating the West, and SGA is probably your early leader right now for that MVP because he's so dang good and he's so fun to watch. By the way, so those things help. Like it's not just some slowish looking Joel Embiid sometimes that I get annoyed with. Like, it feels like he's not even playing in every game. But this Oklahoma City team is really fun to watch. And I know the Jazz fans want to have the type of success that they're having, but is that realistic?
Oh, yeah, sure. I mean, really, absolutely realistic. That's the goal. But the whole model thing, I don't 100% buy into. I mean, I think there's some components that are smart and comparable from team to team, but we've seen so many different teams built so many different ways over the years that I often think it's the club that comes up with the next great idea that usually hits it big as opposed to follows the last guy, But whatever. Well, I think why Oklahoma City is so good is a few reasons. And it all starts, you mentioned Shea, it all starts with Paul George. Well, no, it all starts with Sam Presti decided to take a gamble and trade for Paul George in the last year of his contract and somehow convinced Paul George to stay after losing in the playoffs to the Utah Jazz, which is just wild to me. I can't believe he convinced him to re-sign. Paul George re-signs, and then they eventually trade him to the Clippers. And what, guys, can we say now that Paul George has left the Clippers, that has to be one of the most one-sided, lopsided trades in NBA history? All of those assets, including think about this, guys. At the time that trade happened, we're like, well, the Clippers are giving up the future NBA MVP on the best team in the Western Conference. I mean, it'd be like, oh, the Clippers are crazy. Let alone all of that draft capital. I mean, it's wild. So how do you duplicate that? I don't think you can. Like, hey, Danny Ainge, go shake down a team like that. And Danny has won some trades, so maybe that's realistic for him. I don't know. But how do you duplicate that? That's crazy. And then, you've got to hit in the draft, and they haven't hit on everything. They traded out of the pick that turned into Alperen Şengün. Imagine Şengün on this team, too. I mean, that'd be freaking wild. So Chet still has development to do. That's really promising. Obviously, Shea's amazing. Jalen Williams is amazing. Can you believe they're paying him $2 million this year and next year?
Wow.
I mean, get away with it. You get away with it for a minute.
Hitting on draft picks is just crazy how much that can benefit you. I have this thing where you can miss on picks, but when you hit on picks, and you hit big, it's such a huge deal. So Oklahoma City is really interesting. They're still sitting on a mountain of resources, and I can't figure out why they haven't made that extra move to kick it up another gear to be in the stratospheres of the Boston Celtics, because they could do that. But right now they're really interesting. I don't know what you duplicate with them in the team building process, but it'd be nice to shake down a team like they did the Clippers. That'd be super sweet.
Well, you just mentioned it and brought up an interesting topic of discussion. Does it feel like there is that move out there to be made in the NBA right now? Because I think you have a lot of teams, I mean, the Jazz included, that are waiting for that opportunity to go get that difference maker with some of the assets that they have. But have you identified anybody out there that would even be available at this point in time? I don't see it.
Jeremiah, you just identified the hard part. Yeah, the availability of said player, and that's maybe where criticizing Oklahoma City is unfair. But, you look across the landscape, you never know. I mean, the Sixers, do they blow that apart? All of a sudden, is Joel Embiid out there? I mean, does Giannis get tired of what's going on in Milwaukee, even though they've been better as of late? I think, Luka's future is always a question mark, even though it seems like in a good spot for himself with Dallas, coming off the appearance in the finals. Are you looking for somebody older if they move around? Does Kawhi have any value? I mean, the Clippers should punt on everything. I can't believe they even re-signed Kawhi. It's bizarre to me, but poorly run franchises make poor decisions often, right? So I don't know if maybe some of those guys, like, does Kevin Durant become available again if it doesn't go all that well for the Suns? I don't know. You guys, who am I missing? Am I missing anybody that could be bouncing around?
Right.
That's the hard part.
It's a small list.
What kind of difference maker is out there? That's why Golden State was absolutely crazy for not trading for Lowry Markkanen. I know they're playing well, and I know they're looking awesome, but they're nuts for not giving up on whatever, because Lowry is Clay 2.0 in that offense, except for he's 7 feet tall and he's 10 years younger and a better athlete, right? Certainly right now. I mean, he would have been plug and play. They're crazy.
I love the idea. Like they do the whole when a team doesn't end up getting him, they go, he's not even that good anyway. And all the
like
fan
Draymond did that.
Yeah, Draymond pulled it. Yeah, everybody, he wasn't that good anyway. And you're going, oh my heavens! Like, look where you're at right now. Look what you guys could use. And the Jazz are lucky to still have him.
The 7-foot unicorn that shoots 40% from three. Why would you want that?
With all the guys that are out on both sides of this matchup tonight, what do you think happens down in Oklahoma City? Like, obviously, the Jazz have a very different MO of what they're working on and what they're trying to develop and what they're trying to do. And I don't know if tonight's the type of game where you look and you say, okay, let's throw out one of those interesting lineups that Will Hardy's been having to put together because of some of the injuries and things. So, what does that Jazz lineup look like tonight? And what are their chances there of going in Oklahoma City and staying competitive in this thing?
Well, I mean, probably slim to none. It's weird these teams not playing their guys against the Jazz. And I haven't seen. Maybe you guys can tell me. Have we seen official in and out for tonight? If I miss anybody who's in or out, please correct me. But I was shocked LeBron played on Sunday against the Jazz, because these teams seem to think like, oh, it's an automatic W against Utah, so we'll rest dudes. But I mean, this should be an automatic L for the Jazz, I would guess, even though it's game one of a long month of December on the road. But as far as the lineups go, Will Hardy had a really funny comment in his pregame the other day, where he was talking about, he's like, there's people in this room that have no idea what the combos are going to be, kind of making light of the fact that, they get down deep on a team that was young to begin with, and, Lord knows who's going to be playing. And I do think they're just throwing some lineups out there to see, like what sticks. You know what I mean? Like, let's see what Drew Eubanks and Lowry can do together. That sounds great, because, who cares? And you're not really trying to win ball games anyway, so what difference does it make? It was last week in a close game against the Spurs that they closed with Bryce Sensabaugh and Isaiah Collier, and Chris Paul just took them both to school. I mean, he just ragdolled them, But Will got to let him out there and let him experience, oh yeah, this NBA thing is pretty tough. Like, a Chris Paul's 105, but he's still smart enough to just pin me down and take me to school on in crunch time of a fourth quarter. So it's weird kind of to see who he puts out there with what. I was liking Micah Potter, who could dig out 16 boards and make 3 threes. I mean, God, that works with a lot of lineups, So it's pretty fascinating. In ways to make this season interesting, that is one of them. Like, who works with who and why doesn't that work with one guy and not the other? Like, John Collins and Walker Kessler didn't work last year at all. John Collins and Walker Kessler, I'm sure Locke could dive into the stats and tell me if I'm right or wrong, but it seems like those two have been awesome together this year. And they've been one of their most effective lineups. So I don't know. It's pretty curious to see who plays and why though, especially in the fourth quarter.
Jake, we appreciate you joining us, man, and have a good pre-half and post, and looking forward to it. And we'll be listening on the way home in the rest of the evening here. And so have fun on the way in, and have a good time. Is Coach going to be with you tonight?
We do have Coach. Excited about it. This is a crazy stretch. I don't remember the last time I saw the Jazz on the road this much.
Yeah.
They're going to be home one more time for a schedule for the NBA Cup, and then I think they're not back until the 28th or something wild. I mean, it's pretty nuts. A lot of road games coming up, so I guess a lot of hockey home games. It's always busy at the arena, as you know.
All right, Jake. Have fun tonight, man, and thanks for joining us as usual. It's always awesome to be able to throw everything at you, and you just you break it down awesome for us. We appreciate it, man.
Hey, I appreciate you guys. You're the best.
All right, there
Thanks,
you go.
Jake. Have fun tonight.
Catch.